October 5th, 2025, 3 a.m. The frozen darkness hanging over western Ukraine erupts into chaos as Russian cruise missiles and suicide drones slice through the black sky like razors. Explosions thunder across Lviv, Yavoriv, and Novoyavorivsk. Schools crumble. Factories ignite. Homes collapse into rubble. 8 innocent civilians lie dead. Dozens more bleed in the wreckage. A maternity hospital, once filled with the cries of newborns, now stands as a burning shell. This wasn't a military operation. This was a declaration. Russia's Operation Winter Vengeance, striking deep into Ukraine's western heartland, dangerously close to NATO's doorstep. But as the sun rises over the devastation, Ukraine's mourning transforms into something far more dangerous: determination. In bunkers buried beneath the earth, engineers, soldiers, and programmers begin assembling a response that will shake the foundations of modern warfare. Operation Silent Thunder, a swarm of 370 low-cost drones, constructed from plywood, plastic, and pure desperation, programmed to penetrate the heart of Russian territory. As engines whir to life and the final countdown begins, one question burns across the front lines. Can Ukraine's drone army breach Russia's supposedly impenetrable air defense systems, or will Moscow's skies become their graveyard? The first wave of Russian cruise missiles tears through the atmosphere at 3:06 a.m., shattering the peace over western Ukraine. The target, Lviv, positioned just 80 kilometers from Poland's NATO-protected border. In a devastating 5-minute blitz, 24 missiles and 18 kamikaze drones hammer civilian infrastructure across Yavoriv, Dobovich, and Novoyavorivsk. Panic spreads like wildfire. Air raid sirens pierce the darkness. Ukrainian air defenses roar into action. Buk M1 and NASAMS missile systems illuminate the night sky, desperately intercepting wave after lethal wave. 17 missiles explode mid-air. 24 drones disintegrate before reaching their targets. But 8 slip through the net. Within half an hour, 3 residential neighborhoods, 2 manufacturing plants, and a school lie in ruins. Glass shatters across entire city blocks. Flames consume everything in their path. Ambulances race through smoke-filled streets. The once vibrant town now resembles a war zone from history books. 2 apartment buildings burn completely to ash. 2 schools suffer catastrophic structural damage. An industrial zone falls silent, machinery destroyed. The human cost arrives swiftly and brutally. 8 civilians confirmed killed. 25 wounded, many suffering severe burns and shrapnel injuries. A maternity hospital near Sambir takes a direct hit. Nurses sob as they evacuate newborn babies through rubble-strewn corridors into the open streets. Dozens of families, now homeless, gather near railway stations, their faces frozen masks of disbelief and trauma. Russia's message rings clear. This is Operation Winter Vengeance, deliberately targeting Ukraine's western strongholds and civilian infrastructure less than 80 kilometers from NATO's eastern boundary. Critical infrastructure crumbles. The town's primary power grid collapses into darkness. Fuel storage facilities erupt in flames. Local authorities estimate 175,000 liters of diesel fuel either burned or contaminated beyond use. Hospitals switch to emergency generators, their fuel supplies dwindling by the hour. Emergency shelters overflow within minutes. More than 2,400 people find themselves displaced overnight, their entire lives reduced to the clothes on their backs. As dawn breaks across the devastated landscape, the full scale of destruction becomes visible. Schools, factories, homes, all obliterated in less than 20 minutes of sustained bombardment. Western capitals watch in silence. NATO issues no immediate response. But in Kiev, something more lethal than rage begins taking shape: calculated vengeance. By 6:00 a.m. on October 6, 2025, Ukraine's capital has shifted from grief to strategic planning. The presidential office submits an urgent formal appeal to NATO's 30-member council. The document, stamped, signed, and delivered through official channels, contains 3 critical requests: condemn the airstrikes on civilian targets, authorize immediate humanitarian and military aid, and grant Ukraine expanded operational authority to defend its population. The message to international partners is unambiguous. Our cities burn while the world watches. Stand with us now. 3 separate appeals go out simultaneously to the NATO Secretary-General, the Council of Europe, and allied capitals across the West. The clock ticks. The response falls devastatingly short of what Kiev's ministers hoped for. Phone calls are made with careful diplomatic language. Press releases are crafted with political precision. For 72 hours, no decisive military support materializes. No red lines are declared. Diplomacy moves at bureaucratic speed while Ukrainian cities burn at the speed of high explosives. Inside the Intelligence Command Center, President Volodymyr Zelensky sits surrounded by Ukraine's top military strategists, intelligence officers, and drone warfare engineers. They're not planning a conventional response. They're engineering a revolution. A classified operation activates under the codename Silent Thunder. At its core, 370 low-cost suicide drones, each assembled from commercially available components, plastic composites, and 3D printed housings. Each individual drone costs exactly $1,800, less than a Russian soldier's monthly salary. Combined, they form a $666,000 strike force capable of humiliating a superpower. The drones will launch in 6 separate squadrons, each programmed with different altitude profiles and approach vectors. Flying anywhere from 250 meters down to a terrain hugging 12.5 meters above ground level, their flight paths create a complex web of targeting chaos designed to overwhelm even the most sophisticated air defense networks. Most operate autonomously on pre-programmed routes, but as they penetrate deep into Russian airspace, 18 elite drone operators, programmers transformed into digital warriors, will assume manual control for precision strikes. Ukraine's retaliation won't rely on brute force. It will weaponize chaos itself. The first drone launches in less than 36 hours. The countdown has begun. Can this audacious strike pierce Moscow's vaunted defenses, or will it vanish in flames and radar locks? 8 a.m. 2 days later. The skies over western Russia appear deceptively calm. But in the 48 hours following Russia's assault on Lviv, 370 Ukrainian suicide drones have violated Russian airspace, approaching not from a single direction, but from 6 simultaneous vectors, all converging on a single target, the heart of Moscow. Inside Russia's state-of-the-art S-400 and S-500 air defense command centers, radar operators stare at their screens in confusion. The Delta Formation, hugging terrain at just 12.5 meters altitude, remains completely invisible to their systems. No radar returns register. No threat alarms trigger. By 8:23 a.m., the first wave of drones reaches Moscow's outer defense perimeter. Russian air defense installations near Kaluga suddenly light up. Alarm bells shatter the morning quiet. Frantic shouts of enemy contacts echo through command posts. Anti-aircraft batteries activate without hesitation. Interceptor missiles streak into the sky, creating contrails across the morning horizon. In the resulting chaos, 125 high-altitude drones, deliberately flying as decoys, are shot down, their wreckage scattering across Kaluga and Tver provinces. Russian commanders believe they're witnessing a victory. They're watching a deception. The remaining 245 drones scatter like digital smoke across radar displays. Some dive to rooftop level. Others follow river valleys and power line corridors using terrain masking to remain undetectable. By the time Russian defense systems recalibrate, it's already too late. The drone swarm has penetrated Moscow's defensive shield. 48. A.m. Absolute chaos erupts. 85 UAVs from Echo Group detonate across Moscow City, Russia's premier financial district. Glass towers shatter. Fire engulfs the top 3 floors of a state-owned telecommunications headquarters. 4 people die instantly, their bodies never recovered. Seconds later, 15 drones slam into apartment complexes along Kutuzovsky Prospect, home to senior government officials and military leadership. The sky turns orange with explosions. Sirens fall silent, their power cut. Street surveillance cameras capture scenes of pure panic. Parents clutching children, elderly residents crawling through smoke, cars abandoned in the middle of intersections. The worst strike comes next. 9:12 a.m. A direct hit rocks the security perimeter near Borovitskaya Tower, the ancient walls trembling from the impact. Security forces mobilize in emergency response mode. The final toll, 17 people confirmed dead, 57 injured, many suffering third-degree burns across their bodies. Moscow's power grid crashes. Metro lines paralyze. Air Defense Command loses all communication for 6 critical minutes, an eternity during an active siege. Air raid sirens wail like wartime London during the Blitz. Russia's proud capital, long proclaimed invincible, burns. But this is no accident. This is a statement carved in fire and smoke. No fortress stands beyond reach in the modern age. Ukraine hasn't just crossed a border. It has shattered Russia's illusion of invincibility. The cost? Under $700,000, less than a single Russian Kaliber cruise missile. Moscow hasn't just been attacked. It has been exposed. The aftermath proves more shocking than the strike itself. 3:15 p.m. As the final explosions fade, Russia's capital drowns in smoke and pandemonium. The Moscow skyline, usually ablaze with lights, now burns with actual flames. Emergency sirens scream through the streets, but the city's power infrastructure has collapsed. Firefighters navigate debris-choked roads illuminated only by burning buildings and twisted metal. In the first 20 minutes, over 2,000 distress calls flood Moscow's overwhelmed emergency command center. But communications have fractured. Cell towers lie destroyed. Fiber optic cables severed. Radio frequencies jammed by the system's own malfunctioning equipment. What began as a drone attack has escalated into a full-scale humanitarian catastrophe. At 3:32 p.m., the Kremlin's Crisis Council convenes in an underground bunker. The reports paint a grim picture. 17 civilians confirmed dead, including 3 children. 57 people critically injured, many with third-degree burns covering large portions of their bodies. Over 200 families displaced, their homes reduced to charred rubble. Structural damage estimates reach $2.1 billion, spread across 14 city blocks. Outside, the scenes are haunting. People stagger through rubble-filled streets, faces smeared with blood and ash, clothes torn, eyes vacant with shock. An elderly woman clutches a burned doll, mumbling prayers no one can hear. A man in a work uniform sits on a collapsed bus shelter bench, covered in ash, cradling a co-worker who will never move again. By evening, 7 government facilities remain offline. Telecommunications networks, power stations, and transportation systems lie disabled. Moscow's Metro Line 4 sits buried under rubble, hundreds trapped in the darkness below. Black smoke billows over the Moscow International Business Center, now a scarred monument to vulnerability. Confusion dominates Russian state media coverage. Initial reports claim a NATO cyber attack. Others whisper about sabotage from within. But one truth burns undeniably clear. Ukraine has struck the heart of Russia, not with ballistic missiles or conventional military force, but with ingenuity born from desperation. President Vladimir Putin addresses the nation, his tone cold and calculated. He pledges swift retribution and officially labels Ukraine a terrorist state. Yet even as his words echo across Russian television networks, questions haunt every ministry. Office in Moscow. Why did a $20 billion air defense system fail so catastrophically? How could a nation built on military might be paralyzed by machines worth less than a used car? The fires continue raging. Beneath the smoke, Russia's carefully constructed illusion of invincibility crumbles into ash. From October 6th through 8th, 2025, the world holds its collective breath as news of the Moscow drone attack dominates global headlines. One question echoes through capitals, military command centers, and newsrooms worldwide. What will NATO do? For 2 days, the alliance remains silent. No condemnation of Russia's airstrikes on Lviv. No support for Ukraine's retaliatory strike on Moscow. No public statements whatsoever. Inside Kiev, the silence feels deafening. President Zelensky submits 3 urgent communications to the North: Atlantic Council, requesting humanitarian assistance, defensive weapons systems, and authorization to expand operations eastward. Each request receives the same response: pending review. Meanwhile, Ukraine braces for inevitable retaliation. Air raid sirens wail day and night across major cities. Civilians sleep in metro stations. Generators roar in pitch-black hospitals. People no longer ask for guarantees. They demand transparency. Then, on October 8, 2025, at 8:03 p.m., NATO finally responds. A joint statement is released. We condemn the attack on Lviv and express deep concern about the escalating conflict. A special session has been convened to assess security vulnerabilities across Eastern Europe. No mention of Moscow. No commitment to military assistance. But something fundamental has shifted. By 6:00 p.m., the U.S. Department of Defense quietly approves $600 million in funding specifically for Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicle programs. Poland opens its airports to Ukrainian refueling aircraft. Lithuania and Estonia formally call for full Article 5 consultations. Behind closed doors, NATO leaders aren't simply debating Ukraine's actions. They're confronting a terrifying new reality. Fortresses can fall. Borders have become meaningless. Modern warfare no longer requires massive armies. In Brussels, a classified report circulates among senior military command. Its conclusion reduces to a single devastating line. An $1,800 drone just exposed a $500 billion defense strategy. The implications are staggering. Military analysts worldwide begin calling it the birth of a new warfare doctrine: asymmetric swarm tactics, low-cost, high-impact strikes specifically designed to bypass traditional power structures and sophisticated defense systems. Ukraine hasn't just attacked Moscow. It has fundamentally rewritten the rules governing modern warfare. As Kiev begins rebuilding, its leadership no longer waits for permission from allied nations. They deliver a message directly to the world. If our allies won't protect the innocent will protect themselves. This message resonates more powerfully than any missile strike. Because beneath the rubble of both Moscow and Lviv lies a truth every nation will soon be forced to confront. You can invest billions constructing walls, but sometimes history enters through the window. In just 2 days, the entire geopolitical landscape has transformed. Russia's brutal winter offensive ended in smoke over its own capital. Ukraine, devastated and cornered, proved that resilience, strategic thinking, and unbreakable will can defeat even the most technologically advanced military systems. With nothing more than plywood sheets, circuit boards, and a reason too painful to ignore, they breached the defenses of one of the world's most fortified capitals. But this story transcends Ukraine and Russia. It concerns every nation still clinging to outdated illusions of security. It exposes alliances that promise unity, but hesitate when action matters most. It remembers lives lost, not from lack of strength, but from lack of decisive action. NATO's prolonged silence, the panic consuming Moscow, the whispered prayers beneath, Lviv's rubble, all have become symbols of a world entering a dangerous new era, where enemies don't always wear uniforms and wars don't wait for formal declarations. For Ukraine's people, the assault on Moscow wasn't a victory to celebrate. It was a necessity purchased with blood and grief. For Russia's citizens, it delivered a harsh reminder that the empire they built on fear and intimidation could be penetrated, even by the hands they had once tried to destroy. And for the rest of the world, it stands as a final warning. Wars are no longer fought exclusively on traditional battlefields. They begin in laboratories, basement workshops, and during quiet, desperate nights. Modern conflicts aren't just between soldiers. They're between engineers, programmers, and ordinary citizens with nothing left to lose. What transpired in October 2025 will be studied and analyzed for decades to come, not because of the weapons deployed, but because of the unbreakable will behind them. The battlefield has fundamentally changed. The only question remaining: who's prepared for what comes next?